7 sinister discoveries exposed in the haunted woods that will leave you terrified. And curcd. Sarah had never believed in ghosts or curses. But as she and her 2 children, Lucy and Ethan, stepped into their new, worn home at the edge of the neighborhood, those beliefs began to crumble. The air felt thick. Dusk descended fast, shadows creeping like fingers along the creaking floors. "This place is ours now," Sarah whispered, trying to infuse confidence into her voice, but deep down, uncertainty gnawed at her. The first night was almost peaceful. The house, with its ancient beams and whispering winds, seemed to cocoon them in safety. Sarah fell asleep to the familiar sounds of Lucy and Ethan breathing softly, but as night draped the world outside, a chorus of rustling leaves and distant sticks snapping infiltrated their sleep. Animals, she assured herself. Just wildlife. But a cold sweat trickled down her spine when she thought of the woods bordering their backyard, dense and foreboding. Then came the first discovery, a small, tattered shirt, children's size, wedged beneath gnarled roots just past the tree line. Sarah's gut twisted. What child had lost it? Why was it here? She shook her head, trying to mask the rising panic. Nothing to be alarmed about, she told herself, but unease festered, days blended as more signs emerged. Strange symbols carved into the bark of trees, like warnings etched in desperation. Whispers rode the wind, voices fluttering through the air on the edge of her hearing, making her heart race. At night, a shadow flickered past the windows, as if the house was peering into something it shouldn't see. But when she reported it to the local police, they just shrugged, dismissed her as paranoid. "Just your mind playing tricks," one officer said, leaving her feeling more isolated than ever. The chilling incidents mounted. Ethan would wake, eyes wide with terror, claiming he'd seen a dark figure in his room. Lucy giggled about her new friends in the woods, her face alight with mischief. "They want to show me treasures, Mommy," she'd declare, but Sarah would pull her back, error mixed with a mother's instinct. The more Lucy ventured close to the woods, the more it clawed at her heart, a claw holding on tight. That evening, while setting the dinner table, a horrific sound shattered their fragile calm, a thunderous bang against the door, too deliberate to be wind. Panic flooded Sarah as she grabbed her children, their faces pale with fear. Out they fled, hearts hammering, the sinister grove looming behind them. The dense trees stretched, entreating, whispering their secrets in a language she didn't understand. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they stood in the suffocating shadows of the trees, an uneasy quiet wrapped around them, heavy and hot. Stars flickered above, hidden in a canopy of darkness that felt alive. Sarah's mind raced, the tales spun by her elderly neighbor about the cursed grove echoed in her head. Those stories were there to scare children, right? Or were they a warning? Realization struck. The eyes watching from the shadows felt very real, thick with malice. Each rustle in the undergrowth sent chills through her. What had she stumbled into? A horrific legacy buried deep within the community? As trembling branches clawed at her sleeves, Sarah knew they were teetering on the edge of something terrifying, and there might be no return from the heart of the cursed grove. In the oppressive stillness, Sarah clutched her children tightly, their small bodies trembling against hers. The implicit danger of the woods loomed but moments before them, and every fiber of her being screamed to run. But where? Their home was now a forgotten haunt, and the sinister grove felt like a dark maw ready to swallow them whole. "Mommy," Ethan's voice trembled, quivering like a fragile leaf. "Can we go back inside?" The plea sent a sharp pang of dread through her heart. "Not yet, sweetie. Just a little longer," she whispered, trying to kindle courage that was rapidly fading. She stepped forward, pushing through the thick darkness as if it might shield them from whatever watched in silence. The air turned colder, sharp against her skin, binding with the whispers that seemed to intensify with each step. Eerie figures danced in the corners of her vision. Just shadows. Nothing more, she told herself, yet the chill continued to creep into her bones. Suddenly, Lucy let out a delighted laugh, her face lighting up as if she were seeing an old friend. "The flowers are pretty, Mommy," she exclaimed, dashing toward a cluster of ghostly blooms sticking out from the base of a tree. But Sarah noticed the blossoms were pale, almost spectral, their petals shimmering under a light that didn't belong to the night. "Lucy! Stay close!" Panic surged as she hurried to her daughter's side. The garden of flowers seemed hidden from the world, rooted in something sinister. Just then, her eyes caught another small object beneath the roots, a weathered toy jack-in-the-box, its lid hanging open as if someone had fled in fear. Heart racing, Sarah reached for it, a wave of revulsion crashing over her. It felt wrong. "Look, Mommy!" Lucy touched the toy, eyes aglow as if it were a treasure. "It's nice. Get away from it." Sarah's voice erupted, urgent and sharp. Each moment felt heavier, and she felt the growing pull of the woods, the beckoning call of something dark. Simultaneously, a whisper broke the night. A child's laughter, carefree yet tinged with malice. The harmony of disbelief mingled with dread. Ethan shivered beside her, pulling closer, his grip iron tight. "I don't like it here, I know, honey. I know." Sarah turned to scan the dark trees, her chest tightening with each whisper that slithered through the leaves. They were surrounded, shadows pressing in, filled with hostile intent. A sudden rustling erupted, breaking the stillness. It was a low growl, raw and primal, causing her breath to catch. In alarm, she clutched her children, adrenaline consuming her. "We need to go now." They turned to dash back towards the house, but a shadow lunged from the trees, a blur that shattered the tranquility of night. Sarah screamed, her heart pounding like a war drum. She felt a presence, oppressive and suffocating, wrapping around them. "Run!" she shouted, feeling panic ignite in her veins as she bolted, dragging Ethan and Lucy along. The woods seemed to close in as they sprinted, branches clawing at their flesh like ghastly hands. Despite her frantic strides, the darkness felt endless. A weight hung in the air, and with each labored breath, Sarah could sense the angry eyes tracking their retreat. The forest loomed behind, whispering threats, taunting. Just ahead, the faint glimmer of their house was visible, a beacon in the black, isolation tightening its grip all around. As they neared, a crash echoed from the interior, reverberating into the still night. "No!" Sarah grasped the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked or something on the other side was keeping them out, and then she heard a voice, low and ominous, speaking from within the walls. "You can't escape." A surge of horror washed over her. No longer merely a warning, it was a promise. What had she dragged her children into? As fear laced through her being, Sarah knew she had to uncover the truth before it was too late. What secrets lay submerged within the cursed grove? Would they ever be free again? Panic pulsed in Sarah's chest as the doorknob twisted beneath her hand. She pushed harder, the wood cold and unyielding. Inside, the walls felt alive, echoing the dark promise that seeped from the cracks. Ethan and Lucy trembled against her, their small bodies pressed tightly, seeking her warmth and comfort that felt increasingly unattainable. "Mommy, please. Let us go home." Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, his voice cracking as if he could wish the horror away. "Shoo, it's okay." The word sounded hollow even to her, swallowed by the looming dread. Suddenly, the whispering turned into chaotic murmurs, swarming around them like wasps. Sarah spun around, scanning the blackness of the trees. At that moment, the air thickened, a palpable darkness brooding just beyond the reach of the faint moonlight. The growling emerged again, more numerous this time, echoing through the woods like an unsettling chorus of creatures. "Stay close," she instructed, her heart thumping louder than the growls. They backed away from the door, instinctively moving toward an ancient maple, the sort that belonged in fairy tales, while looming ominously before them an unsettling rustle came from above, branches creaking like bones cracking under pressure. Sarah's breath caught. Something was watching. The tree swayed, its thick trunk twisting as if it were a living thing trying to escape the grip of its own roots. "Mommy?" Lucy whimpered, pulling at her sleeve. Just then, a shadow leaped from the branches. The figure tumbled to the ground, landing with a heavy thud, barely illuminated by the dying light. Sarah's heart nearly stopped. Was it a child? "Go! Run!" A voice shrieked, and with it, the shadowy figure sprang up, revealing a gaunt face covered in dirt and panic. It was a boy, no older than Ethan, with wild eyes and a frantic demeanor. "Help us, please!" he cried, looking over his shoulder. The shadows behind him rippled, and tiny glowing eyes peered from the underbrush. "They are coming." "Who? What do you mean?" Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This was not part of her reality. This was madness. The boy's breath came in frantic pants as he scrambled toward them, eyes wide with fear. "The woods, they want us." He glanced behind him, then back at Sarah. "Did you see the flowers?" "Stop!" Sarah barked, holding her ground. "We can't go any further into this madness." In her heart, she had known the woods were enchanted, sickly twisted in its beauty, but now hearing the boy's words wrapped a cold coil of terror around her heart. She had to protect her children. The darkness shifted again, more shadows swirling, weaving within themselves, forming grotesque shapes and slimy figures that crept closer. Her instincts screamed at her, pulling her to run, but her feet felt glued to the ground. "Mom! They're coming!" Ethan cried, his voice breaking into a shriek. "Run!" The boy shouted again, eyes widening as he dashed back into the cover of trees. "You have to!" But the woods opened beneath his feet, and with a deafening snap, a gaping maw appeared, pulling him into the earth with a horrifying silence that following the scream abruptly cut off. "Mommy!" Lucy wailed, her little body trembling. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She grabbed Ethan and Lucy tightly, desperation fueling her, yanking them back toward the house. They burst through the barrier of trees, and Sarah braced for the door, but it had changed. It wasn't locked anymore. "Quick!" she urged, pulling the door wide open just as shadows slinked around them like smoke. They stumbled into the house, slamming the door behind them, the heavy silence amplifying their ragged breaths. As Sarah turned, she noticed something moving in the shadows. The walls pulsed and hissed, and deep within the wood, something dark and dreadful lurked. Her heart sank. They were not safe here either. The walls started to drip a thick, black ooze, shadows rising like fog, swirling around the entrance. "You can't escape." The voice croaked again, now laced with mockery. They had entered a trap. "What do we do, Mommy?" Ethan whispered, gripping her hand as the blackened tendrils inched closer, but Sarah had no answer as the house seemed to breathe, exhaling despair while the shadows closed in for the kill. What had this house seen? What ancient pain lay within its walls? As Sarah's heart raced, heavy with dread, she knew they had nowhere left to run. What would the horrors reveal next? The darkness swallowed them whole. The room felt like a trap, the walls throbbing and whispering in a language Sarah couldn't understand. Panic seized her again as shadows twisted into shapes that threatened to consume everything. "Mommy, I can't breathe." Lucy gasped, pressing her face into Sarah's leg. The child's small fingers felt icy, and Sarah could barely keep herself grounded. Each slow pulse of the walls seemed to vibrate with a terrible hunger, pulling at her own sanity. "Stay close, okay?" she whispered, though her voice was shaky. The weight of the shadows pressed against her, suffocating in a way that made her want to scream. Each second dragged on with the slow inevitability of doom. Just then, a loud crack echoed through the house, jolting her from her thoughts. The floorboards shifted beneath their feet. With reflexes honed by fear, Sarah flashed a glance over her shoulder. A mass of shadows surged toward them, clawing out from the walls like fingers growing from decay. "Mom!" Ethan shouted, filling the space with terror. In a frenzied moment, Sarah pushed herself between her children and the darkness. No thought, just instinct. She had to shield them, had to protect them from whatever lurked in the gloom. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, she darted towards a staircase that spiraled up into the murky unknown. "Come on," she urged, pulling Ethan and Lucy along. The stairway twisted unnaturally, the slick walls dripped more of the black ooze, and every time they stepped, the stairs shrieked in protest, refusing to let them go. They reached the top and stumbled into a narrow hall, lined with doors that groaned ominously. A dull throb pulsed from one of them, the wood vibrating as if something trapped inside desperately wanted out. Sarah hesitated, caught between the desire to explore and the suffocating terror enveloping her. "Mommy, please," Ethan murmured, his voice breaking. "Let us go." But Lucy, still trembling, pointed. "Mom! Look!" A faint flicker of light peeked through a gap in one of the doors. It pulsed like a heartbeat, irregular yet oddly inviting. For a moment, it ignited a spark of hope within Sarah. Maybe there was a way out, or something that could help them escape this nightmare. "Stay here," she whispered, but the air felt charged, and for a moment the shadows seemed to pause, waiting. She drew closer to the door, each step echoing like a countdown in her mind. The sinister whispers intensified as she pressed her ear against the cool wood, listening for any sign of what lay beyond. It was a cacophony of murmurs, voices mingling in a tormented symphony. A sudden crash shattered her focus. Something colossal slammed against the door they had entered through. The entire house shuddered as if in pain. Fear wrapped around her heart like a vice, squeezing tighter with every passing moment. "Mommy!" Lucy cried, her voice shrill and broken. Without thinking, she twisted the doorknob and pushed the door open. A blinding light erupted from inside, washing over her in waves of brightness that were oddly warm. But that light came with hooks of darkness weaving into it, reaching for them like hungry hands. "Come on!" Sarah shouted, yanking her children toward the light, but it flickered, struggling against the encroaching shadows, the whole passage thrumming with fear. Once inside, they were met not with an escape but an unsettling vision. The room was filled with dozens of flowers, their colors vibrant yet unnatural, shimmering with an otherworldly glow. They looked beautiful, but Sarah knew better. The boy's warning echoed in her mind. "Did you see the flowers? Don't touch anything," she barked, her instincts flaring. But her warning was punctuated by a sudden rumble, and the room began to tremble. The roots of the flowers writhed and twisted, breaking loose from the floor, reaching toward her and the children like snakes hungry for prey. "Go! Go now!" she shouted, and they flung themselves deeper into the room, desperate for safety. Behind her, the door slammed shut, sealing them in with the chaos. A new growl rumbled through the air, louder and more resonant than before. The flowers began to shift, the vibrant colors darkening into ominous shades. Breathless, Sarah turned. The beauty had transformed. The flowers twisted, revealing sharp thorns, dark petals spreading like wings. It all felt immediate, real, and utterly terrifying. As shadows gathered around the creeping roots, Sarah's heart raced. She felt a chilling whisper brush against her skin. "You can never escape." Where could they run to now? What horror was about to unfold, there in the haunting glow of those sinister flowers, the air thick with dread? Sarah knew one thing: they had only just begun to awaken the true terror lurking within the house. What secrets lay hidden within the petals, waiting to ensnare them all? The flowers churned with a life of their own, thorns swaying like eager hands. Each pulsation sent a wave of dread crashing into Sarah's chest, and the room felt like a tomb, closing in around them. She could hear the deep, thundering beat of her own heart, matching the frenetic rhythm of the flowers. "Mommy! I'm scared." Ethan whimpered, his small voice mixing with the sinister thrumming. it pierced through Sarah's fear like a knife. "Stay behind me," she commanded, a firm grip on their trembling hands. The shadows around them twisted, and she could feel their cold presence creeping ever closer, as if the darkness itself hungered for her children. A roar erupted, reverberating off the walls, and the air turned thick with desperation. The roots lunged forward, snapping with a speed that made her stomach drop. "Run!" she shouted, dragging Ethan and Lucy deeper into the room. The flowers reached for them, thorns glistening menacingly in the pulsing light. One thorn pierced the air, grazing Sarah's arm, and pain shot through her like a lightning bolt. A dark warmth seeped into her veins, mixing with her fear, stirring a terrifying realization: she was becoming part of this place. "Mom! What's happening?" Lucy cried, her small fingers tightening around Sarah's. "Nothing, just keep moving," Sarah yelled back, panic boiling in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but the room morphed with every step, twisting like a maze. The walls curved, morphing into faces twisted in despair, eyes wide and pleading. They were alive, aware of her dread. In the far corner, near the darkest section of the room, a door appeared, barely noticeable, faded and distorted. It pulsed with a different light, softer and mesmerizing, like an opposing force to the horror enveloping them. "Mommy, look!" Ethan pointed, and as they hurried toward it, the flowers writhed more violently, shrieking with a sound that was not quite human. "Don't!" But it was too late. As they approached, a vine lashed out, wrapping itself around Ethan's ankle, dragging him back with a force that made him scream. "Ethan!" Sarah lunged, gripping her son's arms. Lucy clung to her like a lifeline, and for a moment, they formed a ragged circle against the dark. The flowers hissed, hot breath laced with venom filling the air. "Let go of him!" she shouted, struggling against the suffocating hold. The room quivered in response, the faded door's light flickering just out of reach. "Mommy, it's eating him!" Lucy shrieked, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. With every ounce of strength, Sarah yanked at Ethan, trying to free him from the thrashing roots that had ensnared him. She could feel the darkness pulling at her, pulling at them, seeking their fear. She had to break free. With one final heave, she tore Ethan loose, but not without a cost. A thorn pierced her palm, blood trickling down her wrist. They stumbled backward, breathless, and as they fell, the floor quaked beneath them. With a cry, Sarah flung her arm out, pushing them away from the crunching roots. They landed near the door, gasping, weapons of thorns and petals swarming toward them. "Mommy!" Lucy's voice was thin as a whisper, but fear electrified the air around them, coating everything in a thick, sticky dread. Sarah turned to the door. Its gentle light was tantalizing, almost a promise of escape. But a promise from this nightmare felt like a curse. "Should we try it?" she asked, doubt prickling at the edges of her mind. Ethan nodded, even as guilt skittered in his eyes. "Yes, please." The room roared, a cacophony of agony mixing with the seductive whispers of the flowers. They were angry, and with each passing moment, the air grew heavier, bearing down on them, threatening to crush their resolve. "Now!" With a forceful kick, Sarah swung open the door, but the scene inside was not the salvation she'd hoped for. The light consumed them, wrapping around their bodies like a shroud. They stepped through, and the world tilted. What lay beyond was an expanse of shadow, more oppressive than the room they'd just escaped. A silhouette loomed. At the end, a figure cloaked in darkness, barely visible through the haze. "Welcome," it hissed, voice slithering like smoke around them. Panic surged through Sarah's veins. What have we stepped into? And as the door behind them slammed shut with a finality that echoed in her heart, one truth became chillingly clear: they weren't just running away, they were running deeper into something far more sinister. Still reeling, she couldn't shake off the feeling that ending this nightmare was only the beginning of a much darker journey. What unspeakable truths awaited them in the shadowy depths ahead? The heavy air pressed down on them like a weight, an unrelenting force that threatened to suffocate. Shadows danced around Sarah, Ethan, and Lucy, morphing into grotesque shapes that seemed to breathe and pulse with malicious intent. The distant figure, cloaked in darkness, slowly stepped forward, revealing an outline that stretched and warped, as if it were made of the very shadows surrounding them. Who are you?" Sarah stuttered, fear branding her voice. The figure paused, and in that silence, the air thickened, swirling around them like a storm eager to unleash its fury. "Lost souls," it said, voice cold and hissing, slithering through the darkness like a serpent. "You venture into the heart of despair, where shadows feed on fear. You should have never left the flower room." Sarah glanced at her children, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror. "We need to get out of here," she urged quietly, her mind racing. The figure's laughter echoed a chilling sound that resonated with the darkness. "There is no escape here. Only acceptance and transformation." Cold dread wormed its way into Sarah's heart. "What do you mean?" Panic twisted in her chest, threatening to consume her. "Everything has a price," it gestured with an outstretched hand. The shadows around them writhed, forming half-formed faces that sobbed and cried, each a reflection of pain. "You must confront what you desire, what you fear most. Will you be lost or reborn?" Ethan whimpered, clutching Lucy, as if he could shield her from the horror surrounding them. But Sarah knew there was no protection they could muster, only a desperate fight for survival. She had to protect them, no matter the cost. "Let us pass," she shouted, her voice raw with defiance. The shadows stopped, swirling tightly around them, creating a vortex of whispers and cries. "Passage comes with knowledge," the figure replied, its eyes glinting with something dark, something ancient. "Your fears will become your realities. Do you dare? The truth lies in sacrifice." Trembling, Sarah felt the weight of a choice pressing against her, the path ahead or the memories buried deep inside that could consume her. She knew it was a trap, but the thought of being devoured by darkness was worse than facing the truth. "Stay close," she hissed, grabbing their hands tightly as she stepped forward. The shadows surged, a wall of darkness blocking their way yet swirling with a strange energy. As they approached, flickering images began to unfold, memories of their past, flashes of moments filled with joy, sorrow, and haunting regrets. "Look," the figure whispered, its voice dripping with insidious delight. "Look and remember." Ethan gasped as a scene revealed itself, Sarah tucking him into bed, the gentle hum of a lullaby hanging in the air. Then it shifted, revealing the day they lost their home, the fear tainting that once safe space. "No!" Sarah shouted, squeezing her children's hands tighter, forcing herself to turn away. "We have to keep moving." "Is that your greatest fear?" The figure jeered, gliding closer. "To lose them? Or perhaps it is the darkness that lurks within your mind?" As Sarah backed away, the shadows wrapped tighter around her and the children, clawing at their legs with icy tendrils. Ethereal wails pierced the air like sharp knives, scratching at her sanity. "Let them go," she cried, desperation carving lines on her face. The walls of shadow seemed to pulse, as if they fed on her desperation. In that moment, she felt a flicker of hope, a chance. "Ethan, Lucy, close your eyes," she commanded. She couldn't let them be pulled into this nightmare. She had to fight back. Gathering every ounce of strength, she formed the words in her mind that echoed in the deepest channel of her heart: "We are more than fear." With a surge of will, Sarah lunged forward, using her body to shield her children. In that instant, the shadows screeched, as if struck by a painful truth. But what lay ahead remained shrouded in darkness. The figure snarled, its voice rasping like dry leaves. "You think you can escape? The truth has merely begun to unfurl." The oppressive force threatened to break her resolve, pulling her towards the encroaching shadows as she wrestled to maintain her grip on her children. What new horrors awaited them in this realm of darkness? What sacrifices would they need to make to survive? As the shadows thickened and closed in, one question echoed louder than all others: could they escape, or would the darkness claim them forever? The shadows pulsed violently, like a furious heartbeat echoing in the oppressive silence. They twisted and turned as if drawn to something deep within Sarah, something that they could devour wholly. Her breath quickened, a cold sweat drenching her as she fought to keep herself anchored in the moment. Whispers flooded her mind, flickering reminders of choices she once made, paths she had taken, and the sacrifices she had avoided. Memories of laughter turned sour, sharp with the bitterness of regret. The figure loomed larger, its form shifting, a dark embodiment of all that haunted her. "Face it, Sarah," it hissed, each syllable crawling under her skin. "You cannot escape your truth. You must see what is festering inside you, or you will be devoured. Stop!" She yelled, desperately wishing the command had the power to obliterate the grip of the shadows, but the ground beneath them shook, vibrating with the cry of the lost. Ethan clutched Lucy closer, her knuckles white as she fought the same horror that twisted around them. Their innocent eyes reflected their mother's fear but also a flicker of resilience she could hold on to. "Let us go," Sarah shouted, pulling her children with an urgency that felt almost futile. The shadows collided with her in waves, each hit an icy breath of despair trying to chill her spirit. "Look at them." The figure pointed, and the whispers vanished, replaced by an agonizing clarity. In the heart of the shadows, scenes erupted like fireworks of despair: her mother struggling with illness, the bitter cold of that last family Christmas, the echoes of arguments that fractured their family. "No!" she screamed, covering her ears with her hands, the cries of her past clamoring for attention. "They're just memories." "Are they merely memories?" it taunted, now right in front of them, its form shifting to mimic her mother's face, twisted in pain. "Or are they regrets that will birth your damnation?" Without thinking, Sarah lunged forward, swiping at the figure with desperation. "Stop! You have no power over me." With a sickening laugh, the figure deflected her blow, its body swirling into a mass of writhing shadows. It was both horrifying and mesmerizing, like staring into the abyss and feeling it stare back. "Did you think unearthing what is buried in your heart would repel me? It will only bring you closer to your fate," the thing sneered, and the surrounding shadows erupted into screams, clawing at Sarah, pulling her deeper. "Ethan!" she shouted, watching helplessly as the boy's face illuminated with pure terror. "Lucy, hold on tight." But as they clung to her, the shadows twisted their grip tighter, threatening to tear them apart. Time felt meaningless in this horrific limbo. Sarah's heart raced, her breath short. Inside her, the walls of her courage began to crack, and just when the shadows seemed to have the upper hand, she remembered the stories her mother told during stormy nights: tales of facing your demons, tales of strength and survival. "We are together," she shouted, feeling their presence next to her as a fierce energy surged through her, a semblance of united defiance. "Our love is greater than your darkness." With newfound strength, they surged forward. The shadows shrieked as light broke through their grasp momentarily, illuminating the path ahead. But it was a feeble glow, one that threatened to collapse under the weight of despair. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted, and Sarah felt herself pulled in every direction as reality split. Ethan and Lucy held onto her tightly, and she could hear their cries merge with the shadows, forming a chorus of confusion. It felt endless, and yet in the chaos of this nightmare, something shifted. "Sacrifice," the figure hissed, its form flickering as if losing grip on this reality. "You must decide what you are willing to give up. It is the only way to escape this fate." Sarah felt a new dread coil around her heart. What cost would they have to pay? As the darkness roared back to life, threatening to consume them whole, Sarah realized with chilling clarity that fear was not just a weapon for the shadows, it was also a choice. Could they survive in this dark world? What truths would be unearthed, and who would they become on the other side? The figure's laughter echoed, intermingling with the wails of lost souls as Sarah prepared to confront the hardest choices she had ever faced. What would she sacrifice to protect her children? What truth, submerged in darkness, awaited her grasp? The void swallowed them whole, a churning mass of shadows and whispers. Sarah felt the weight of despair pressing down on her chest, an unrelenting pressure that threatened to crush her spirit. "What do you mean, sacrifice?" she gasped, her voice trembling as the figure shifted back into its amorphous form, lurking just beyond the feeble light. "You will choose," it breathed, the sound slithering through the air like a poisonous gas. "One of you, or all of you, a trade to escape this fate. It is the only path left." Ethan's grip on Lucy tightened, and she could feel the tremors in their small bodies. The flicker of defiance she had found moments before dimmed, replaced by a dizzying fear that paralyzed her. What price would save them? Would she betray her children? The thought wrapped around her heart like a vice. "Mom!" Ethan's cry broke through her shroud of indecision. "Don't let it take us." The shadows shifted, writhing at the edges of her awareness, each one clawing for a piece of them. She could see twisted faces emerge, laughing silently, echoing her own doubts and fears. "Love won't save you here," the figure mocked, a cruel smile forming in its face as it echoed her earlier words. "What will you choose?" Desperation surged once more. "We are stronger together," she shouted against the howling darkness. "You are nothing but a shadow. You can't hurt us." It responded with a howl that reverberated in her bones, sending chills down her spine. The darkness closed in, thickening like a suffocating fog. Sarah struggled against it, clinging to her children, their faces painted with terror. But deep down, she knew this was a desperate bluff. As the figure drew nearer, something deep within her began to unravel. "Reveal your truth." It screeched, and she felt a pulling sensation, a violent tug at the seams of her very being. The atmosphere shifted, and with every breath, her childhood nightmares rushed back. Her father's cold eyes, the penance of long-buried secrets, the ghost of a daughter she had lost through neglect and missteps. "Enough," she choked out, her voice rasping as she battled with the memories. They were consuming her, threading through her mind like vipers, seeking to paralyze her resolve. "I will not give up anything. Not my children." "Then you will suffer the consequences," it whispered seductively, buds of darkness sprouting around them with sinister promise. "Each one given voice increases my power." Just then, Sarah caught a flicker from the corner of her eye, a shimmer in the darkness that drew her gaze. With a cry, she pulled her children close and dove toward it, hoping beyond hope it was an escape. But as she ran, the shadows surged forward, pushing against her, blending with the darkness enveloping them. "Help!" Lucy cried, her small hands reaching for the light that seemed to pulse just beyond their grasp. With every step, the shadows snared her, their icy tendrils wrapping around her ankles, pulling her down. Sarah could feel her heart pounding in her ears, the weight of their fear tangling with her own galloping dread. "We need light," she shouted in a panic. "We need hope." The laughter intensified, a cacophony of lost souls intertwining with her cries. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked open, and a swirling portal of shadows beckoned beneath their feet. Was it the way out, or a deeper descent into hell? As she hesitated, the figures in the darkness shifted again. "One more chance," the figure hissed, its voice twisting with delight. "Who will you sacrifice to escape?" Sarah's heart raced. She clutched her children tighter, but deeper within her, another harsh truth began to bubble. What if? The shadows hissed in unison, an impatient chorus urging her decision. Abandon her children? The fear grabbed hold of her throat, choking her. Then, through the tremors of uncertainty, she recognized a single glimmer deep within the shadows. Was it the light she craved? Or something darker still waiting to reveal itself? "Mom, please." Ethan's voice pierced the thick air, shaking her from her paralysis. In that split moment of terror, she made her choice, unsure of the consequences. The swirling darkness drew closer again, and the laughter crescendoed around them. Each heartbeat echoed as she desperately whispered to the shadows, "I'll do anything, just please." A deafening roar filled the void, drowning out her words, and just as the shadows began to engulf her, the ground split open. The three were swallowed into the abyss, a freefall into unknown terror, toward a choice she could never have prepared for. What awaited on the other side? Would the terrifying truth consume them completely, or would something emerge from the chaos that could turn the tides? They tumbled through the darkness, the air around them twisted and thick with an unsettling chill. Sarah's body felt weightless for a moment, and then came the crash. They landed hard on a damp, uneven surface, gasping in unison. Groans filled the air, punctuated by Ethan's whimper as he clutched Lucy tightly. Are we dead?" Lucy's voice was small, trembling with disbelief as she surveyed their surroundings. "No, we're still here," Sarah murmured, her heart racing. She forced herself to stand, shaking off the disorientation that threatened to wrap its fingers around her mind. As she looked around, panic surged anew. They were surrounded by an unsettling forest, twisted trees reaching up like skeletal fingers, their branches clawing at the night sky. The ground was a slick mess of mud and writhing roots, not the kind of place anyone would willingly enter. "Where is that light?" Ethan's voice broke through the thick fog of fear. It hung like a bad dream. The shimmering flash was suddenly gone, leaving them with only darkness. "Mom?" Lucy whimpered, her small hands brushing against the cool, clammy bark of a nearby tree. It felt wrong, alive in a way that sent shivers skittering down Sarah's spine. "We have to stick together," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. The silence loomed, and in that silence, the shadows seemed to pulse with anticipation. She could feel the weight of something watching them, lingering just beyond the veil of their terrified breaths. Rustling came from the underbrush. It was subtle at first, like the whisper of a breeze. But then it grew louder, more frantic, as if the creatures of this forest were eager to consume them. Sarah's stomach twisted. "Stay close," she hissed. Just then, a laugh echoed through the trees, sharp and hollow. It was the figure, somehow woven into the very fabric of the wilderness. "You escaped me once," it crooned from the shadows. "But I am never far away. You will choose again, and I assure you, the cost will be far greater. What do you want from us?" Ethan shouted defiantly, although his voice quivered. "Your fears," the figure replied, its voice sweet as honey but laced with venom. "I want you to confront them. Each step you take steepens the darkness. Could it be that you will choose to sacrifice your bond? Understand the price of survival." Sarah felt ice grip her heart. Panic enveloped her as memories surged, whispering doubts igniting wild thoughts. They were immersed in despair, each faced with a choice, a question, a deadly riddle. Anger hardened her resolve. "Stop. You'll never take my children." But the trees around them shifted, dark figures rippling in their branches, voices intertwining with the wind, mocking her defiance. "Oh, but they're already lost within you," the figure snickered, a twisted thrill apparent. "Face the truth, Sarah. Will it be them, or will it be you?" Suddenly, branches snapped close to them, an unseen presence lunged through the darkness. Lucy screamed as a shadowy form darted forward, its hands clawing, a net of darkness forming around their feet. "Run!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging as she yanked her children along. They sprinted through the oppressive gloom, breathing heavily, hearts pounding in sync with the monstrous beat of the forest around them. The ground shuddered beneath them, and roots rose up, snaring her legs. She stumbled, pulling herself free just as cold fingers wrapped around her ankle. "Mom!" Ethan cried, fear slicing through her like a razor. With a fierce cry, she broke free, tearing ahead into the murky path lined with the flickering shadows of both her past and future. They burst into a clearing, enveloped by an eerie phosphorescent glow emanating from an ancient stone circle at its center. In the heart of that sanctuary, spirits danced, ethereal and twisted by their anguish. They turned their hollow eyes toward Sarah, gauging her resolve, beckoning her deeper. Her heart raced, torn between the hope of safety and the dread that deeper darkness awaited. "What will you choose?" The question echoed around them like a relentless chant. Echoes of despair and fury clutched at her, but this wasn't just a test of survival. It was a confrontation, a reckoning. What if the darkness was a part of you? The shadows murmured seductively. Sarah's mind raced. Could she really sacrifice what she held dear? Or would she embrace the truth lurking in that light, take the risk of losing everything, or nothing? The trees leaned closer, their breath humid and alive, whispering secrets as the veil of chaos thickened. Sarah took a shaky breath, and as she peered into the glowing light, she felt the weight of her choices loom ominously ahead. Would she succumb to the shadows, or would she embrace the truth she'd been running from? The warmth of the glow pulsed around Sarah, momentarily dispelling the chill that had seeped into her bones. But with that warmth came the weight of the moment, heavy with memories she had hidden from herself and the reality that lay before her. The specters swirling in the stone circle mirrored her internal struggle, each one a shadow of who she had been and who she could still become. The figure stepped closer, its shape a swirling mass of darkness, taunting her with whispers. "What if I told you that all you had to do was sacrifice your children to save yourself? What if their pain could set you free?" Sarah felt her heart twist. "No!" she shouted, her voice furious, reclaiming her strength. "I will not sacrifice my children. They are my life, my hope." Ethan and Lucy squeezed her hands tighter, their little faces pale with fear but determined. "We believe in you, Mommy," Ethan exclaimed, his voice trembling yet fierce. In that moment, something shifted within her. Fear and defiance intertwined, fueling a flame in the pit of her stomach. "You think you can take them from me? This is not a game, this is our life." Her voice rang out unwavering, defiant. The shadows recoiled, hissing, the angry faces of lost souls swirling as if the very essence of despair had risen against her. "Hiding from the truth only amplifies the darkness," the figure hissed, its words dripping with malice. "Face what scares you the most, the memories of your failures, the pain you've buried. Or watch as they consume your children." With that, the clearing trembled. The spirits around them grew restless, forming sharp and darkened shapes that clawed at the air. A cacophony of screams erupted, a mixture of anguish, regret, and despair. "Mommy, please!" Lucy cried, clutching Sarah's arm as tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm scared." In that moment, Sarah felt the depths of her love wash over her, fierce and unwavering. "You will not have them," she roared, driving her feet into the ground. "I confront my fears, and in doing so, I take back our power. I choose love, not fear." The shadows paused, their frenzied movements stilled by the force of her declaration. A bright light surged from within her, sharp like a blade cutting through the gloom. It pushed against the darkness, illuminating the twisted spirits around her, showing them not as monstrous forms, but hurtful reminders of her past. "Look at the truth," she cried, feeling the light expand, her own memories surfacing in swift currents. She saw herself as a child, lost and afraid, not understanding the weight of her surroundings. The disappointment clouding her decisions, the guilt wrapping around her heart like a shroud. But with each memory came moments of joy, love, laughter, and warmth, the simple pleasures that had once anchored her to the world. "You're right," she spoke, eyes fierce as she met the figure's gaze. "I have fears. But they are part of me and do not define me. And they will not take my children." With every ounce of strength she could muster, she forged forward, pulling Ethan and Lucy with her. The shadows seemed to push back fiercely, but Sarah's light blazed brighter, fueled by her determination to shield her children from the darkness. As they reached the stone circle at the center of the clearing, the shadows writhed in desperation, whispering promises and threats. But Sarah stood firm, grounding herself through the love she had built for her children, pushing against despair with furious resolve. The circle glowed as if responding to her heart, the spirits lingering nearby, all whispering secrets and truths, weighing her choice. Anything but their lives. She cried, feeling her resolve solidify into a force that shook the very roots of the grove. I would sacrifice myself before I ever let darkness take them. With that, the ground beneath them pulsed. Darkness and light collided, merging in a swirling chaos filled with echoes of screams and shouts of defiance. The shadows shrieked, expelled from their bindings as if her love had become a shield. In a burst of blinding light and surreal energy, Sarah felt the weight of the shadows release, dissolving into nothingness. The embrace of the light enveloped her and her children, opening a passage, a door back to their home, where safety and love awaited. They stumbled forward, propelled outside the malevolent grove. Breathless, clutching each other tightly, Sarah dared to look back. The shadows writhed and contorted, retreating as if her resolve had banished them to where they belonged. As they emerged into the soft dawn, the house appeared transformed, not daunting, but inviting, a renewed sense of warmth radiating from within. The dark memories were there, but they no longer held power. Ethan and Lucy peered up at her, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. "Are we safe, Mommy?" Lucy asked softly. "Yes, sweet girl," Sarah replied, warmth flooding her voice. "We are safe. And I promise to never let doubts keep us apart again." As the morning light painted the world around them, laughter echoed through the air, a sweet reminder of the binds of love, the resilience of family. Their journey had opened the doors of their hearts, and together they would face the lingering shadows lying within, but always with love leading the way. They turned and stepped inside their home, past haunted memories onto a path forward, a reminder that together they could face any darkness. But first, a necessary pause of connection. You need to subscribe now. Hit that button immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that await you. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial, and don't hesitate. Flood that comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear everything. Lastly, you must share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.